my gosh. How can, working with you, give us some examples of clients, situations, working with you, what has changed for them? You mentioned earlier in the conversation, money increased or they found the relationship they were looking for romantically, better, connections with their children. Can you give us an example of a client you worked with, a pattern they overcame, and what was the outcome?
Mm. Gosh, you know what, Sarah, it's like you take the banquet and you just pick what piece of the meal you want. When someone comes to me, it's not a what, it's not a are you an expert in this? It's I am an expert in helping you take the cognitive, which is the 5% that you know, and then going into the somatic, the body that you don't know. It's like a cave. I shine a flashlight and go, "Hey, did you notice this?" And you go, "Wow, I never saw that before." And then we go into it, and your body's wisdom helps us to excavate it. So yes, we have helped people double. One of my clients doubled her money within 3 months because that was a block within her nervous system. I've had another client that had so much loyalty to a company that she allowed some, in other people's view, would have been seen as kind of like work abuse. And she was able to walk away and get something that served her better in her nervous system. She didn't have the courage or even really the full thought of doing, until she went, "Oh my gosh, I am being taken advantage of on a regular basis," because she began to raise her deserve level in that area. I never promise specific outcomes for someone. What I promise you is to find the authentic alignment that lies within you. And so, I guess for your audience that's listening right now, if you're able to pause in this moment, I'm going to ask you to ground yourself. I'm going to do a quick, could I do like a quick, like two,
Yeah.
3 minute thing? So,
Yes.
and if you need to come back to this podcast, just give yourself the gift of asking what it is for you. Because yes, I've got a million things of what it's done for other people, but really what matters is what can happen for you, and what can happen for you, whether it's with me or somebody else. Like what is within you. We go so fast that we don't pause and go, what is it? So I'd like you to put both feet on the floor right now. And I'd like you to relax your shoulders and get to an edge of a chair so that you can now sit straight and access the fullness of your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is where 70% of the oxygen, the lower lobe of your lungs is 70% of where the oxygen lies. When we oxygenate fully, we're able to access higher level thinking. Most people breathe in a survival mechanism. So they can't access. So we're not going to chest breathe up top. We're going to diaphragm breathe down below. So take 3 intentional breaths through your nose if you're able to, down into the diaphragm. And as you take your first breath, when you relax it out, wiggle your toes gently on the floor, letting your body know, yes, it's on the earth, it's solid here. The next intentional breath, if you'll feed your beautiful heart that next breath, and thank your heart and your mind, it beats, therefore you live. Beautiful. And then with the next breath, if you could breathe in infinite intelligence or God or universal calling, universal wisdom, whatever you call it, something higher than you to come into your body right now with love and acceptance, and breathe out any discontent or worry. And then you just simply ask yourself, what within me needs to be released? What within me needs a release? And what within my life is no longer serving me? Whatever comes as a first instinct, don't judge it. And you won't have an answer for it. You just have this knowing, this stirring. And it might be something you think about already, all the time. I remember for an entire, going back for myself, 12 years, and like really deeply pained with this question for 4 years: should I stay or should I go in my marriage? And I was married for 22 years and I loved him and I still love him. Um, And I did not want to break the family unit. And, so many of us, we are unconsciously bought in society of this accolade, this story that says, hey, are you married? And if somebody says yes, they check the box in our mind, like, oh, good, you're on the right path. And then how long have you been married? If they say they're brand new, you're like, oh, you're in the honeymoon phase. You don't know what it is yet. And if they've been married a really long time, it's an instant celebration. We don't understand the gaps in between, what that really means. And there's a lot, Sarah, of silent suffering that nobody talks about. They are going through the motions of the discontent because we don't know how to get out of our own cycles. And so just having this report card doesn't mean that you're living to your fullest extent. Now, I also want to make a disclaimer that I am not an advocate of divorce. It was the hardest thing that I've ever done. I lost my mother, and my mom was like everything with me. Going through the divorce was worse. At the same time, I am more aligned than I've ever been before. I am free and happy, and I had to face myself, and it was hard and it was beautiful. It was expansive instead of the shadows versions of myself that I walked around with. The one that tried to confine herself into the categories of my own doing and of others. So I just ask you, whatever it is, it's time to get out of purgatory.
Mm.
Purgatory in your body, purgatory in your money, purgatory in your relationships. And I pray for you that if you're in a relationship and you get out of purgatory, you come together. We're going to work on your 50%. And it's up to them for their 50%. The warning sign is for your business, for your body, for your relationships, whatever. The fear that's unconscious within people is, if I change, will I still be with whatever it is? And the answer is maybe. But the shadow version, the unhealed version, might have chosen that position, that body, that relationship, because it needed it to survive then. I needed a different version back then because I carried patterns I didn't realize were not serving me. And so had I not had energy meets energy, had I not had that relationship, it wouldn't have been right for me. So it was so right for me at the time. When you begin to feel like you're in purgatory, you don't judge the fact that you've grown. That's what we're supposed to do. And if you haven't done your job as a human, as a soul.
My God, so good. It's so good. I think I'm not sure if people know this, but you helped me tremendously coming to LA. You've helped my business enormously. And our work started with and I know each client is different, but we did some journaling work of like my beliefs around money. And then you'd also taught me this practice of these even more statements. And I'm not sure if you even know this, but for a year when I moved here to LA, which was a year and a half ago, and even before that, coming here, I would do my even more statements all the time. I'm even more healthy. I'm even more of a multimillionaire. I'm even better with money. These and tell me, and these even more, what was wild? They work. My
Wow.
business in the past 2 years has doubled from what it ever was. Yes, yes.
I
Now,
didn't know
um,
that until this moment.
well, you can use me. And by the way, Roya on her website, it's royamattis.com.
No, it's well, the one they want to go to is she-nest.com.
She dash
SHE-NESS. My private clients are also men. My brand is focused on women, but my private clients are equal men and women. Yeah, she-nest.com.
You have unbelievable reviews, and I owe you one because your statements helped me break a lot of fear. I mean, there was a lot of fear about coming to LA. My husband loved his job in Virginia. Okay, he's the whole he needs to take your course too. He's like a whole but Schman is amazing and I'm very grateful. We thank
Oh,
God where we are in our relationship is one that
man. Uh-huh.
Schman, we help each other. But Schman I'm a risk taker and Schman is not, so it was hard at times to get him to like have faith. It's like, Schman, we're going here for more money, a better life, bigger opportunities, and all that's unfolding. And he's beginning to see it. Takes a little bit longer, but those even more statements are just one of the practices that you gave me. And, you give people individual practices too, but those help tremendously. And I know you're going to help me take my business to the next level of
Right.
becoming an even better businesswoman and more spiritual. And, you know, I love with you too. I mean, when you're aligned, right? Lots of times things are easier. It's like you almost manifest more money without working harder. You almost manifest more love without, like, you know, breaking your back to try to get somebody to like you or want to be with you. I mean, that's what alignment does, right? It like you said with the river analogy,
It's
everything flows.
it's bringing tears to my eyes because you just took me to the memories of, the 20 some years of creating a successful business. I loved it, but I sacrificed so much, I created boundaries within it to be at certain important places, but I mean, I put my body to a test for sure. And the income that I need to make per hour now, but when you're talking about income is like, oh my gosh, I work a fraction of the amount of time and I love the things I get to do for people. And it was dark on the journey to get to this spot, but wasn't that long compared to a lifetime of living with all of the spaces trying to find peace. A lot of the people, they come to me and they're like, I have this great life. It's like I've got this puzzle in front of me, and there is this ache in the center, that missing piece, that like one piece I can't find, and maybe I can't even put my finger on it. And once we help you identify what it is, once we find that root cause, it no longer owns you. And I just want people to feel the freedom that I feel now. I want them to feel the abundance that's in the everywhere that I just knew was there cognitively, but I couldn't grasp it, you know? And that version of me, like she was just tired. She just worked so hard, and that doesn't mean I don't work hard sometimes, but that's not my lifestyle anymore.
Oh my God. Isn't it a beautiful thing? I can relate. When I
Mm.
was on the Kane show, I made the most money I ever made, over $250,000 a year, which seemed like, I mean, for somebody 27, 28 years old, I mean, this was
Yeah,
like unbelievable money.
yeah,
But my soul, I mean, towards the end, it was like I dreaded, I mean, driving into the parking garage of that place, not even necessarily because, Kane had mental health issues we didn't recognize at the time, but the expectation there was that, if you're going to make 275,000, we're going to get every nickel out of you. We expect you to work 14-hour days, you have
yeah,
no life. And you think like, oh, at first I can do this, and I love what I do. I love talking to people on the radio, and the radio show means so much. But
yeah.
it is I mean, I never dated anybody in my 20s. I had major weight issues,
Wow.
gaining, losing, binging, hating myself, spending thousands of dollars on diets that never worked. The weight always came back because in my soul, I was like, this is not, I don't have to work like this to, I didn't know how to put the pieces together at the time, but I'm like, I can create a show that entertains women, inspires women, helps them to think differently sometimes. And I don't have to do this for 14 hours a day and like have no life,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
body was shot. And I know with you, you went through, I mean, you literally burnt your body out
yeah.
and
I was
had
paralyzed for a short amount of time. Yeah,
and women listening to this they're feeling that right now in their jobs or marriages or a relationship, you know, and there is like, I feel like we give people hope, right? There is another way. Like you can make amazing money and you don't have to work. Like I pinch myself, Roya. I mean, I live in the city I always wanted to live in Los Angeles. I have my own podcast studio in my home. I'm like, I create income from my home where I can be with my son every morning. I can pick him up at 3 o'clock to do speech therapy. I can be with him at night. It's like the dream. I stop and I'm like, oh my God, Sarah, like you never even thought this was possible 10 years ago on the Kane show. Like I thought I would have to get up at 3:30 in the morning every morning for the rest of my life to make good money and
mm,
like live.
mm,
Amazing.
girl, amazing, amazing. And that's the other thing is like whoever's listening right now, like oh, who you are today is not who you were 5 years ago. And then imagine what your life can be 5 years from now. Like it's just such the 5 years and 10 years makes such